Welcome back to Harbour Unboxed. It is our final Computex related video, and we thought we'd ask you guys some questions and we'd answer them in regards to Computex. So there's some pretty interesting things here that we don't normally talk about with our Computex travels and whatever, so hopefully this will be interesting. But before we get into it, the Harbour Unboxed Computex coverage is brought to you by MSI and Thermal Grizzly. Check out MSI's X670E Tomahawk Wi-Fi, offering complete support for the full range of AMD Ryzen 7000 and 7000X3D CPUs with its powerful 14+1+1 80-amp digital smart power VRM to ensure temperatures stay cool even under full system load. The Tomahawk also takes full advantage of DDR5 memory with dedicated SMT welding and patented MSI memory boost technology, delivering clean and pure high-frequency DDR5 signals. So for more information, please check the link in the video description. Also supporting our Computex trip is Thermal Grizzly and the new Cryo Sheet, a high-performance graphene thermal pad that contains no liquid and therefore isn't subject to the kind of degradation seen with traditional thermal pastes, such as drying out, for example. It offers outstanding thermal conductivity, simple installation, and extreme longevity. So for more information, please check the link in the video description. All right, Tim, first question here. Which products impressed you personally and or made you excited about it coming to the market? So what's the most exciting products coming to market that we've seen?
Well, I guess I should probably give a monitor answer, shouldn't I? Because there were some sort of pretty interesting monitors. I think it's probably that MSI 240Hz QD OLED, the 49-inch ultra-wide. I saw the Asus model as well, but it's only 144Hz, and I sort of feel like probably going to be paying for 240Hz because it'd be quite expensive, I would imagine. So yeah, 240Hz QD OLED, first QD OLED at 240Hz, nice and immersive format. Be interesting to check that out and just sort of see what it's like. What do you see?
I saw some cases that looked interesting, some PCIe 5.0 drives. I think the Asus Matrix 4090 card, that looked really interesting. Awesome. Liquid metal and all that good stuff, higher rated BIOS. So I think that's probably the thing that I'm most interested in looking at, I would say, based on the show. Obviously there's not much in the way of new PC hardware that we haven't really seen before, but that's a new graphics card that could be genuinely a good high-end card that's a bit different from the rest. So yeah, I mean, stuff like the MSI Project Zero, I'm interested to do a build with that. So that's also going to be interesting. I don't know what I'm most interested in, but if I had to give one, probably, yeah, the Asus 4090.
I mean, there was some interesting, it seemed like a lot of vendors this year were going in on like cableless fan designs.
Which
like
are
we
cool.
saw a number of different versions of this. I think the C-Sonic version, with the strong magnetic capabilities. We saw there was a Corsair version as well, which was slightly different. It had sort of like little connector pins between the fans and things like that. But yeah, I think it's good to see that they're trying to eliminate all those annoying fan cables and RGB cables. So instead of you having, two cables per fan, you just daisy chain them all together with one cable. I think that makes a lot of sense for PC gaming. And yeah, but I did find it interesting that like a lot of vendors seem to have that same idea at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, has it been a thing before? I don't really follow fans too much.
The clip together fans has been a thing for a little while, and there's been AIOs that have done a much better job than what we typically see at managing cables. But this is definitely the next step. But it's surprising, like you say, to see quite a few different brands doing very similar things. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
What was the weirdest thing you guys saw showcased that made you question your sanity?
This is a competitive segment, I would say. There was quite a lot of weird and, I won't say wonderful, but very weird things. But probably one of the weirder things came from ADATA, their XPG lineup. So we've got XPG chocolate, I've been told. They're like sort of sticks with chocolate on them.
Yep.
So
I think this is the strawberry version. So I'm not sure how you have strawberry and chocolate in one version.
So we've got a few packets of those. So should we try one?
I'll try one.
Some Gamer chocolates. They're probably very melted out here, but we'll,
it's like 30 degrees out here.
And then we've got some XPG Gamer bubble gum. So that's
probably
also
not great to try that on camera.
We won't try that on camera, but yeah, I think that's really weird. They had some...
And this is, to be clear, this is not a promotional product for the show.
No, this is something they genuinely sell, like 7-Elevens and stuff.
This is a sole product.
Yes.
So things like that are interesting. Open one up. I think a lot of people as well don't realise that, Computex is not just a consumer electronics show. you go there and there are, there's an MSI booth, there's an Asus booth, but then you walk like 5 meters and there's a company selling like label printers for people who work at supermarkets. Then you walk a little bit further and someone is selling like medical devices. So you walk around, you just see all sorts of really weird and interesting products. So yeah, definitely a lot of competition for this spot, but all right.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Pretty tasty.
It's like a biscuit with like a strawberry. It's almost like strawberry ice cream flavor. Like, give the ASMR.
Not bad.
It's not bad.
So
there you go.
There you go. That's probably the weirdest thing, and then of course the chewing gum as well. But yeah, as I said, there was a lot of things competing for this spot, but we're giving it to A Data. All right, Tim. I'll bring up the next one here. Have you been recognised yet by any fans or otherwise people you didn't or don't know? Did they strike up any interesting conversations or comments?
It's been a lot of this.
Yeah.
I think last time we came to Computex in 2019, the channel was less than half the size it is now. So we got recognized back then like a few times, but it wasn't crazy. Like we could easily walk around the show floor and not be interrupted. This year, I reckon it's been like 30 to 40 selfies a day on the show floor.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And it's not just the show floor. Like we come around to the hotel and a few people would recognize us just in train stations or at Taipei 101. But it's really awesome. It's cool meeting fans of the channel and sort of saying hi to people and sort of, the fans make the channel, right? Like the only reason you're getting recognized and all that and wanting selfies is because people care about what you do. So I always find it really nice to have a chat with people and see where people are from. Like everyone's like, oh, we got fans from this country or that country, and that's always very nice. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's been really good, really great to see. Been a lot of fun. And yeah, we've talked with some interesting people, and yeah, it's just great. It's been very different to last time, as Tim said. So yeah.
I think the thing that surprised me the most is when the company employees want selfies. Like you go to a booth and it's just some employee from that company, and they're like, "Oh, can I have a picture? Can I have a picture?" And it's not a fan or they are a fan of the channel, but they're not like another media or someone that's visiting the show. It's actually just an employee. Like when we. Someone wanted a selfie with us from a company in an elevator, like they met us in an elevator. That's right, and they're like, yep. I want a selfie with you. It's like, oh, that's nice, but it's interesting that you work for a major company. So yeah, that was very interesting. Wasn't expecting that for sure.
All right, next one here. I'm excited for next-gen Threadripper and Raptor Lake refresh, but I'm very surprised that we haven't seen these products at Computex. Since we've had a few years without it, I'm worried that Intel, Nvidia and AMD might stop launching interesting consumer products at Computex. Are you worried about this as well? I'm not worried about it. It's not always a trade show that lines up with product launches historically. Usually there's been something interesting from one of the big three there. But I think this year is probably a bit of a feeling out process, seeing how big the show is, if it can be brought back to life. And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Obviously, the show hasn't been running for the last 3 years as an in-person event like this. So, yeah, there's a lot of, testing of the waters. And as you said, I think it's really feels like the show was back in 2019, except with not as many, product announcements and things. As far as, the Threadripper and, upcoming Intel processors are concerned, while those weren't shown at the show officially, there were certainly products around the edges that sort of hinted at that, the motherboard refresh. There was a Noctua cooler for Threadripper that they're saying, this is coming out in October. And it's like, I wonder why a next generation Threadripper CPU cooler would be coming out in October of this year. So, you can go around to product booths and see things like that sort of hint at it, but...
Yeah, which again, product releases haven't exactly lined up with the show if they're coming in October, quite a few months away yet, so... But yeah, there's definitely hints, as you've seen with stuff like refreshed Raptor Lake and that. There's hints that stuff is coming. But yeah, so maybe next year at Computex we'll see some major launches. But I think the real takeaway for me is the fact that although there's been really nothing big launch, we had a couple of small GPU launches and stuff leading up to this that weren't that well received.
Yeah.
Despite all of that, the show itself has still been quite interesting, and there's a lot of people there, a lot of vendors, a lot of things happening, which I think in previous years without much hype of new exciting products, it would have been a lot more dead than it is. So I think everyone's just happy to be back at Computex.
It certainly has that vibe, and a lot of things that like we haven't made videos on the channel because they're things that we normally wouldn't be covering, things like cases, fans, coolers, things that maybe like a Gamers Nexus would cover. It's just interesting to see those products. Like you go to a Corsair booth and you see their new fan setup. It's like, well, we wouldn't normally test that sort of product, but it's interesting, and you meet the people and you have a chat and everyone's really excited about products, and just good vibes all around. Like no one's sad that Nvidia, Intel and AMD haven't really made anything this year.
A little bit more disappointing, but like I said,
the vendors seemed happy.
That's right. Yeah.
Are board partners concerned that high GPU prices will harm their business? Current pricing is really turning a lot of people off building PCs IMO.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that is actually a question that Tim and I have put to quite a few different brands in private meetings and stuff over the last few days. And I'd say the general sentiment there is that yes, they are concerned by not necessarily our reviews and like Gamers Nexus reviews and just the reviews in general, but more the announcements of these products before the reviews, even were live, that the gaming community really shunned these newly announced RTX GPUs. You guys just weren't impressed with the news videos you saw that Tim did and stuff like that. So, and the reviews certainly didn't help there. So yeah, they know that gamers aren't impressed, gamers aren't excited by what they're seeing, and for that reason, sales are very, very poor.
Yeah, it felt like a bit of, I don't know, like not necessarily about they're concerned specifically about like a GPU sale, but just like the ecosystem in general.
Yes. Like
how are we encouraging PC gamers to be building PCs and buying new components? And if you don't have those really exciting GPU products or CPU products, even though CPUs are actually fairly good at the moment, there's sort of that, it affects all the other categories.
It does.
So someone that's like a case manufacturer, even though they have nothing to do with GPUs whatsoever, if people aren't building PCs, then their sales struggle as well. So you kind of get that feeling going around speaking to people that it is a little harder to incentivize people to buy these products and get people interested in the whole market thing. And I think that is largely due to these sort of GPU pricing issues. But again, a lot of companies are also taking it pretty positively. They're just trying to show their products in the best light. They're not sort of doom and gloom about it. They're just like, this is what things are. This is what the market is like right now. And that just means we have to work harder. We have to innovate more. We have to create better products. And yeah, hopefully that'll turn into some pretty interesting things coming out. But again, it'd all be nicer if those GPU prices were a bit better than they are right now.
Definitely. All right, Tim, what is the most and least enjoyable thing about attending the trade show or attending a trade show like Computex? And if you didn't need to go for the channel, would you still want to attend?
I definitely would want to attend. We've actually taken it pretty casually this year, tried to make not as many videos, just sort of take it a bit more chill, because the best part of the show is meeting people. So meeting fellow YouTubers, meeting other people in the industry who work at companies, having interesting chats, and we could do that without making any content for the channel. So as long as all the other people are there that you want to meet, it would still definitely be worth going. So that's my favourite. I'm sure it's yours as well. Yeah.
If we weren't going for the channel, I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but I'd actually much rather go, because catching up, as Tim said, with other YouTubers and the companies and that without having to make videos.
We have more time, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the time we're sort of booked up with meetings, or we have to work on the production of videos, and it can be very difficult to sort of coordinate with other people's schedules, like especially other creators trying to figure out when they're not making videos. So if we're just doing nothing, then we could just slot in all those people whenever they're free.
We're available.
So that would work really well, but that's sort of the way Computex is. I think probably one of the negatives about Computex is sort of what we're faced with right now, which is I'm not a huge fan of tropical weather. So it's very hot and muggy if you're ever outside of the show floor.
Yep.
So yeah, walking between buildings, just walking around in general, it's just very sweaty, very hot. So I'm not a huge fan of that, but it's not like a trade show specific thing. That's just the weather that you get here in Taipei. And the city's lovely apart from that, though. Yeah,
I think for me, it's more just the challenges of filming on a showroom floor. Obviously, I'm used to my studio that's air-conditioned, cool and quiet. Everything's there, and you don't have to sort of fight to get near a product. So the challenges on the showroom floor are probably, the things I like least about coming here.
It is very busy, especially if you're trying to go there right when the show floor opens, which I think was like the Tuesday this year. are very, very busy, difficult to get around. Everyone wants to see the new products. And yeah, if you're trying to film something, we had to have people tasked with helping us out in that regard. So
it's very challenging. So
yeah, that's a bit difficult. And the travel,
Yep. So
flying's
what's
not amazing.
what's favourite, most enjoyable part of we haven't answered that yet, have we?
Yeah, the meeting people.
Oh yes.
Certainly the most
No.
favourite.
I thought we started with that was if we didn't have to attend, would we still attend?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you answer both in one?
I think my
Okay.
favourite part of the show is meeting people. I mean, some of the products can be pretty cool. Like it's very invigorating going to the show and seeing like all these cool new products, and you meet people that are very interested in talking about technology and stuff. Normally I'm just sitting around by myself in my studio, just sort of making videos and chatting online. But going around and just walking the show floor and just seeing what's there, what sort of not just the major vendors, but the little guys that are doing just random things is always interesting as well.
Yeah, okay. I agree with that, I think. Yeah, that's definitely the best part.
Yeah.
All right, Tim, what was your overall favourite component in each area? Like favourite motherboard, favourite power supply, favourite case, etc. So,
Favourite power supply. Not sure I could ever have a favourite power supply. It's not a very exciting product category.
yeah, fair enough.
So, yeah, I mean, a favourite monitor, I think we talked about that earlier, sort of being that MSI 240Hz QD OLED.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of like new display stuff on the showroom floor, like just a few bits and pieces here and there. Seems like there's a few more like cheap, affordable, like 100 Hertz monitors, like sort of moving from 60 or 75 Hertz to 100 Hertz. So that's been pretty interesting. Like, what about motherboards? There's a few motherboards on the show floor.
Yeah, my favourite one, tough. As I said, I liked the MSI Project Zero, that the reverse power connector, well, just connectors in general motherboard. Thought that was cool. For my favourite though, in terms of practical board, if the quoted pricing of $80 to $100 off is accurate, I think stuff like the B650E Tai Chi Lite, so the new light boards from ASRock, I really liked them. Remove a lot of the RGB lighting, which I don't really care for. Some of the unnecessary cooling components, and just strip the board right down, but keeping all the important features that we do like, but yeah, getting rid of all the bells and whistles in terms of like aesthetics to make it a much more affordable product. So I like that, just that concept. Whether it turns out that I like the boards or not, I like the concept.
Yeah, I mean that's the case with Computex, right? Like we haven't tested any of these products, so it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean, we went and saw some Fantex cases yesterday, and some of those were pretty interesting in terms of like, not necessarily the like super practical builds, but certainly for aesthetic purposes. I think Fantex has some really interesting products. Unfortunately, I don't think we got any footage of them because we were just there to take a look. But yeah, I think something like that looks very interesting. I was impressed by the Seasonic magnetic fans.
Yeah, they
seem to work really well, very toolless, sort of easy to use and operate. And
they had a fun AIO cooler with fans that you could.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a bit novel.
That's a bit surprising because we don't normally like take too much focus on like a brand like Seasonic. Like we're not exactly going and looking at their stuff too often. So yeah, that's just sort of I guess one of the cool things about Computex is you see those sorts of things on the show floor.
Yeah.
How do channels like you and GN get entire displays to yourself when shooting videos? Do you cordon off the area? Are there negotiations involved?
Well, I wish we had. I wish we had as much area as you make it sound like we have, but often we're working in a very confined space.
That's true. A lot of the time it's like trying to squeeze in, trying to optimize the angles of filming so that other people around us are not impacting the view. So often the camera may not actually be too far away from where we're filming, if at all possible. For some of the coverage we did, it's a case where we have to sort of get employees at the booth to sort of prevent people from walking between the camera and us. So for example, right now the camera is not within arm's reach. So that's an opportunity for people to interrupt the filming, especially in a busy trade show floor. Like people are just going to dart through. So often we have like maybe 3 or 4 employees plus our video editor Balin who will sort of be blocking the side. So like over here and over there, there'll be people preventing people from entering that space. But that's only needed for, it depends on the product, right? Like how big it is, how far away we need to film from. Some of the time, the products are more tucked away, so we can sort of sit in there without too much interruption. And sometimes the booths are just a lot quieter, so it makes it easier to go around and film. Like a thermal take, for example, if we filmed there, that was a really large booth with not heaps of people around. So it would have been easier than filming at, say, an MSI where there was a lot of people around and we really needed those people to block off space for us. So
yeah, and generally there's a bit of waiting around as well. We don't just march in, kick everyone out and say, we're going to film here. We usually have to stand around for 10, 15 minutes, wait for everyone, wait our turn essentially. And then once it's our turn, we hop in there and yeah, we don't exactly remove people from the area. We just wait till it's sort of vacated. Yeah. And then once it is, we have a few employees help keep it that way for, I don't know, the 5 minutes or so that we're there.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't really come across on the camera because of the way that we set up these shots, but very often on the other side of the camera, it's like wall-to-wall people, especially walking around the sort of cordoned off area. I remember in ASRock, some of the employees were practically like tackling people to stop them from coming through the area and forcing them around the back of the camera. Yeah,
and I think our original MSI video, I saw a couple of people comment saying like, Tim and Steve are just like smirking and sort of laughing the whole time. And it's just because we're not used to it. Like, I think the first scene we did there was probably 20 or 30 people just right around us, all with cameras out and stuff.
Yeah, those like MSI employees filming us, filming ourselves. So it's like a sort of an insight into how we do the process. And a lot of people are kind of, I guess, interested in that. So they were all sort of standing around and so
there was lots of thumbs up and stuff like that. So
yeah, like when we'd say a product spec and we said it correctly, the product manager standing behind the camera would be like nodding and being like, good job and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. This is not at all how we film back in Australia. Like, it's very much set up a tripod, no one's around. It's very, very there's no audience, right? Like, not that an audience is bad or anything, it's just interesting and different. So,
yeah, we're going to react a little bit differently to normal. We've got a huge crowd that's sometimes like 4 or 5 rows deep. It's very, very weird for us.
Yeah, but we're always like scouting out locations in the booths that are like, if we need to film an intro to a video, where's the best spot that has the fewest people, so we're not like blocking people and getting in their way. And I feel like, I think most creators are pretty conscious of other people filming. So if you're like a fellow YouTube or fellow content creator, you're not going to walk between cameras. The big issue is like just the business people who I guess don't have very much awareness of the content creation thing. So yeah, they're sort of the most at risk of knocking cameras or getting in the way. But in general, I think it worked out fairly okay for us this year in terms of filming. I think it was reasonable. Yeah. Were there any 32-inch 16:9 4K QD OLED monitors, I presume, at the show? I cannot stand 21:9 monitors. Unfortunately, at the moment, no. It seems like the OLEDs are sort of getting wider, not narrower. They're sort of going the other way. And that's mostly because just, panel development's not there. But just in general, the monitors that were shown off this year were much more things that are coming out this year. Like, they're not too far away from being launched. In previous Computexes, we'd see a lot more concept products, like things in development for several years in the future, things without product releases or product dates. Whereas this year, there wasn't too much of that. So maybe in like a prior Computex, we would have seen a product like this because the panels are in development and are potentially coming out like end of next year, maybe early 2025. So like Computex 2019, ASUS probably would have shown something like that at the show and announced it. But yeah, this year it seemed more focused on like the here and now, like the things just about to come out. And I guess that goes back to what we were saying earlier with companies trying to feel out like what's Computex going to be like this year. Is this a show for sort of future concept products, or is this a show for like, I don't know, the current stuff, and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, maybe we'll come back to Computex next year and there'll be a lot more of that sort of future looking stuff on the show floor. We've got a question here from our friend Jared over at Jared's Tech.
Move on.
Yep, we'll tell him. We've seen him here at the show, but so hello, Jared. He asks, favourite food at Mossburger?
We did have Mossburger twice while we were here. It was delicious both times.
Really love it.
Not sponsored by Mossburger. I don't know the names of the
English translations are always really weird here. Like, they give you this English menu with pictures of all the products, but it's not like a Big Mac or a quarter pounder. No. It's like beef patty burger with beef, like roasted beef and vegetables.
Yes, I had beef on mine with bacon or something. Anyway, it was delicious. Some beef burger, very good. And they were doing truffle cheese chips, which were amazing. So they were also very good.
So yeah, we don't get Mossburger back in Australia. It's more of a sort of Asian region thing. Very nice. At the bottom of the hotel, so can't complain. Delicious.
Balin thoroughly enjoyed it, our video editor. All right, Tim, pretty straightforward one here. What is something you wish you saw at Computex but wasn't there? GPUs worth buying,
Yeah, and I
I
think
would say.
it was weird to see like just a complete lack of Radeon products on the show floor, but also just AMD products in general. It was a very Intel and Nvidia dominated show. Like all the vast majority of the motherboards outside of the ASRock booth were Intel motherboards. Almost all the GPUs, again, outside of vendors that were AMD exclusive, again, like an ASRock, were GeForce. Like the MSI booth had no AMD GPUs, no AMD motherboards. I believe Asus was the same in terms of their AMD split. So not really sure what's going on there. I mean, AMD's already launched a lot of their products, but the lack of... Did you find it weird, the lack of AMD?
Look, I thought there might be some new AM5 motherboards coming out soon, maybe an affordable one from MSI, but...
7600s, like that's just launched. We saw virtually
Radeon.
no AIB models, like no low profile models or single slot models or something interesting. Like often at Computex after those GPU launches, you can go around and you can find the super big ones and then the super small ones, and that's interesting, but there was just none.
Yeah, well, I didn't see a Radeon RX 7600 for the entire show, not one.
No, I believe there were some AMD laptop products, but that's not really something that we cover too much. So that's like, we'll have to get up Jared on the phone and ask him, like, was there any AMD laptops? But yeah, I thought it was strange because previously AMD's had sort of a...
Pretty strong presence.
Yeah, strong or standard presence at the show. But yeah, a lot of... And it was weird because, like, it wasn't just new products at the show. There was, like, NVIDIA GeForce demos where you'd go up and you could play, like, Cyberpunk on an RTX 4090. And it's like, that's not new. Like... Those technologies have already been released, the GPU's already been released, but there was no like AMD equivalent to that, like playing like a Jedi Survivor or something like that. It just wasn't there.
Very weird that. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but yeah, it was definitely dominated by GeForce test systems and GeForce displays and weird.
Interesting. Do you guys think liquid cooling will become the standard across all pieces of a PC at some point in the future? That liquid-cooled graphics card you guys showed off got me thinking that it might only be a matter of time until each piece is liquid-cooled. Secondly, would more pieces being liquid-cooled increase power consumption and push required power supplies into higher price territory? I think that second part probably not. They're not super power hungry to run a liquid cooler.
No, not at all. But I don't think it'll become a standard for a multitude of reasons. One being that, first of all, we don't need it for most products. It's more of a Halo type product thing that, where we see power consumption go a bit wild.
Yep.
And you'll certainly see them a bit more of a mainstream type product there in that more niche market. But as something you'd expect to see as standard, I don't think so, because there's so many problems with liquid coolers, from the actual liquid itself clogging up, having breaking down, issues over time, longevity's not great. And then pumps, of course, can fail as well, whereas air coolers are much more foolproof.
And they're cheaper.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, replacing fans on heat sinks much easier than replacing a pump from an all-in-one liquid cooler. And sometimes you can't even get the parts to do that. So yeah, they're nowhere near as practical as air coolers.
Yeah, even the MSI Concept GPU cooler, which had the the liquid cooler as on the GPU itself instead of as an AIO, it's like, it's a neat thing. You see, like, that's cool, but then you're like, is that actually like a practical design that's going to provide genuine benefits over an air cooler of the same size? Because it was still, a relatively large cooler.
Yeah.
And, as you mentioned, I think in the MSI video, it has the potential to be blowing air from the radiator directly onto the GPU and issues like that. So, yeah, I mean, at these shows, it's all about liquid cooling. Like, you see all the builds, there's a lot of liquid cooled components that are shown off, and yeah, it's all about liquid cooling. No one cares about air cooling as much, but the reality is that air cooling is still going to be the dominant thing.
Yeah, the water cooling stuff is visually impressive, so it's great for display PCs, but it's nowhere near as cost effective or practical. So again, high-end premium products, that's where liquid cooling makes more sense, but I can't ever see it becoming a sort of a standard across, a standard cooling item.
Yep. Which tech showcases did you find that you feel can revolutionize gaming, and only in terms of improving gaming performance, but also improves gaming experience while, roaming around the Computex convention? I don't really think there was anything that was like revolutionary that you're going to like go out and must buy. Like, there really wasn't.
No.
It really wasn't the show for that.
No, like PCIe 5.0 SSDs aren't that. Reversible motherboards aren't that.
No.
None of the cases.
No, it's like minor improvements. There's a lot of like iteration, sort of new features and things like that, but nothing that's like, nothing that's like must buy. I mean, at some of these shows, it's lined up with new generations of things like, new motherboards or new motherboard series, or, I think they launched like B550 or B450 at one of these shows several years ago. PCI 4.0 can sometimes be announced at these things. But yeah, this Computex I don't really think was like a revolutionary show.
No.
And certainly some of the things were, again, sort of questionable utility, like the motherboards with the connectors on the rear side and things like that. So, yeah. This year's Computex seems to have a lot of companies trying to push new standards and form factors, differing attempts at RGB standards and various ways of eliminating cables. Do you think there is some causation to this trend, and how do you see the landscape of PC hardware form standards such as cases and motherboards changing in the next few years? Will PCs look nothing like they do today?
I think they'll just be a refined version, which is what all of this is. It's refining what we already have. I think PC manufacturers have worked out now that RGB is not necessarily a fad. Like, gamers do like their RGB, and so it's here to stay. And they've been working on, improving RGB software, improving the RGB products that they offer, and this is just the next step of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, I think with some of these products, there's questionable longevity as well, like whether, rear connector motherboards will gain any traction is, it's not a done deal. It's not like we're seeing it and being like, whoa, that's definitely the future. There's pretty significant questions there, like, if you buy a motherboard that has those connectors, you're basically guaranteed to need to buy a new case. Like, it's probably not going to fit into your existing case, which means that for upgraders, it's probably not something you'd be considering. It's more for like new full systems or even like OEM system builds.
Yep.
So, and then on top of that, it's like, if you then did buy the case and motherboard with that support, how long is it going to last? Like, would you be sure that it's going to be like the case standard will be around for the next time you want to buy a new case? So I guess it could go either way, couldn't it? Like, it could take off and people be interested, or it could flop and just really go nowhere.
Yeah, that's right. Generally, those things don't take off. If I had to bet, I'd bet on it not being successful, not being adopted. But at the same time, I like having the options. I think it's kind of cool. I'm certainly not against it. I haven't tried it, so maybe once I try it, I'll be like, yeah, this sucks. This is not a thing that you should buy. I'm very keen to get some boards and cases in, do some builds live on the channel or something like that, and see how we find it. I think it'll make upgrading, like changing motherboards and stuff, much easier. How relevant that is for most people, not very.
Yeah.
But it'll probably make things like cable management and making neater builds significantly easier, but then you don't get to see your premium sleeved cables, which are one of the cooler looking elements of a new build. So I don't know, like I said, mixed feelings on that one. I don't know if I'm for or against yet, but I would like to get the opportunity to build one, and then I'm sure I'd have a much better idea of what I think of that new sort of format.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely concerns around like vendor lock-in and exclusivity with some of these products, especially for things like there was the Asus motherboard with the GPU power connector directly on the motherboard. That's not a standard product, so
that's more extreme. I think the reversible motherboards, it's you can modify quite easily with a Dremel any case to support those, and upcoming cases it'll be pretty easy to make that support universal. But as for the Asus graphics card, that is very much an ecosystem lock-in type product, which I'm not really for at all, and it's
even
very
some of the
unnecessary.
fans, like the fans which are like daisy chaining off one another. It's like you're basically, if you want that clean look, and you want to add more fans in, you have to buy that same, not only that same fan from the same company, but like the same type of fans. You're locked in as well to like
only if you want
those sort of more premium.
Only if you want to link off that existing.
Yeah, but it's sort of like, I guess with current fans, you can just plug them into any motherboard header. Like, they all have the exact same connectors. A lot of the RGB connectors as well are sort of universal and will plug into most motherboards. Whereas, this sort of new version is more like you buy the hub, and then the hub, off the hub is all the the proprietary cables and connectors that go only into like the Corsair fans.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, it's like, you buy the hub, you're kind of like, well, I spent all that money buying the hub, I'm sort of like kind of obligated to continue that ecosystem. And it'd be nice if there was like a like a single cable solution that was more universal, but it's we're in the very early stages of that. So.
To be fair, with current RGB fan type hardware. We've already got that problem anyway, like
True. Yeah, it is a
using the
bit of a
various
mess.
hubs and stuff. So you've really got to
Yeah.
pick a brand and stick to it. But yeah, that's how these things sometimes go.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we're probably a good spot to pause it there or stop entirely.
Stop it. That's all.
My drink is out. You look like you're just about through yours, so I
Yep.
reckon we're just about due to top up. And we might get Balin a drink. And then we'll go back and edit this video and release that for you guys. So thanks to everyone who asked us questions. Thanks to everyone who's watched our Computex coverage, because we've had a blast over here. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and can't wait to get back here next year. And hopefully there'll be, some more exciting product announcements, especially from like Intel and AMD.
Yeah. Really enjoyed it. So if you want to support us on Patreon or Floatplane, do all the usual stuff and like the video.
Do all
I
the
don't
good
know.
stuff.
What else is there? Watch the whole video, but you've already done that.
We've got sponsor links down there for Thermal Grizzly and MSI. Click those to support us, supporting them, supporting us.
Check out the products. Both of them do genuinely have good and interesting things to check out at the show.
Yep,
So
definitely. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. I'm your host, Steve.
I'm your host, Tim.
See you next time.